They're in the gate.
They're in the gate.
In the gate.
They're in the gate.
It's a head-bobbing finish.
Across centuries and cultural shifts, the dedication, the sacrifice are universal. Just up the road from one of America's most memorable battlefields lives a veteran of a much more recent war. Ron Krajewski spent a decade in the Air Force, rising to the level of Staff Sergeant and serving in Saudi Arabia during the first Gulf War a quarter century ago.
I was an electronics technician on an EF-111. Their job was strictly to jam radar sites, jam communications so bombers can go in unmolested.
How scared were you?
I mean, we were in range of Scud missiles and there was always that threat. We got to see the films, the in-flight films from the cockpit of the first night of the war when they're actually going in and bombing Baghdad, and they were facing all that aerial defense from Baghdad. And it's different when you see it on CNN, you see the footage, but what we got to see, we got to hear the audio of the pilots, and it was not a fun experience for them. They were definitely scared of getting out of there with their lives. It made everything real. I mean, what my job was.
What made you think about getting a horse in the first place?
When we go on vacation, we do the horse trail thing and ride horses and stuff and get my fix, but I never, ever would have dreamed of having off-track thoroughbred.
What they got was a retired thoroughbred named Metro Meteor.
Metro Meteor is coming down the center of the course, and he is coming hard. Bogota Bell, Metro Meteor kicks in and kicks clear. Metro Meteor was full of run in that final furlong.
He'd won 8 times in 27 starts, mainly in New York, from 2005 to 2009, though no wins at the top level. Even if he had won stakes races, Metro was a gelding. He couldn't father children. A group that repurposes thoroughbreds, called New Vocations, placed him with the Krajewskis. They thought he'd make a good trail horse.
His knees just looked like, they were just huge. I mean, it just looked like a bucket of nuts and bolts, you know. I mean, it was just like little lumps in them, and it was just really kind of sad.
The injuries is kind of, I saw the other side of horse racing and what kind of a toll it could take on a horse.
Well, given the fact that you yourself were in a war, what kind of connection did you feel to this animal who had been through his own wars of sorts?
I definitely felt a connection to Metro right off the bat. I felt like he was down on his luck. I felt like someone who was once great and just fallen on hard times and just needed to help back up. That's kind of how I thought of Metro at the time.
Ron Krajewski and Metro Meteor had lived life to the top, to quote former Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, but now shared the consequences of their respective experiences. An intervention was in order. Ron Krajewski developed one particular coping mechanism while stationed in Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War. He taught himself how to paint. He decided to try the same thing with his new kindred spirit. I
started drawing in the service during those 4 months when we really had nothing to do, when we were waiting for the war to start and build up to finish. And I just kind of started drawing to pass the time. When I got out, I started painting watercolors.
What made you think about doing that with Metro?
Ever since the first day we had Metro, he's a ham. He likes to hang his head out of the stall, bob his head up and down. He's got this big floor-to-ceiling head bob that he likes to do to get attention. And the artist in me immediately saw that, and I was like, you know, someday I'm going to put paintbrush in that mouth and see if you can do something with it.
So how did you teach him how to paint?
It was kind of embarrassing to say. It only took about 10 minutes a day for 5 days. I taught him to hold the brush in his mouth, and when he held it for a length of time, you know, I pulled out, he'd retreat, and I taught him to touch his nose to a canvas. And when he touched it, you know, I gave him a reward, and But then when I put both of them together, I mean, making strokes, I didn't know how to teach him that. He did all that on his own. So, I mean, luckily he took right to making strokes. Otherwise, you know, his art career could have ended right there. He could have made, you know, touched it to the canvas, dropped it, and that would have been the end of it. You know, the vet said, you know, he's got bone growth in his knees. He can't ride him anymore. In fact, he only had 1 or 2 years left to live before his knees would lock up. So I thought, well, let's teach him to paint. I always had it in the back of my mind because he's got this head bob that he likes to do. And the artist in me thought, well, you know, if we ever put that head bob to use, you know, maybe I could put a paintbrush in his mouth and he'd paint with it. But
I think he's a pretty happy guy for not really having a job. But since he can't be ridden anymore, I mean, he really looks forward to painting.
Metro's paintings have sold, both locally in Gettysburg as well as online. Some of the proceeds have gone to new vocations, while a portion has paid for experimental medication, not yet even approved in the U.S., to treat Metro's unusual bone growth. And the results have been extraordinary.
And over the course of 3 or 4 months, we got new x-rays and saw that the treatments were working. The bone growth was reversing in his knees, and, you know, painting saved his life.
Over the years that you have observed him painting, are there particular types of strokes that you've seen him develop better than others?
He always works left to right. If I hand him the paintbrush over here, he's going to work left to right, and he'll work his way off the canvas over to the right. I can predict where he's going to start. I can't always predict where he's going to end. Depends on how quick I take the paintbrush away from him.
So that's what you did for his health. What did he do for your health?
He brought me out of my shell. I was a severe introvert. I mean, when I got out of the Air Force and I became an artist full time, you know, I was never really that into people. You know, I'm a full-time artist. I don't need to meet with people. I don't need to go out in public. And I kind of took it to the extreme. I didn't like leaving the house. And when he started getting famous, suddenly I found myself in the spotlight as Metro's spokesperson. You know, for Metro, I kind of sucked up my fears and went out and faced the public. And so, you know, he kind of forced me to do that, to come on my show.
Oliver Wendell Holmes once famously described the incommunicable experience of war. Maybe it isn't completely incommunicable. Maybe it just can't be understood by someone who hasn't been through it. But the code is universal, its lessons eternal, and its power to heal extraordinary.
I've got an old war horse, and we've both been through a lot, and basically we're two flawed individuals that kind of come together and make something beautiful when we get together.